Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. So inshallah, in this lesson, we'll be moving on to something called tadlis. Okay, this is linked to, remember last time we said the son is muttasil or ghair muttasil. Something's missing, so this is similar. Okay, but it's a bit more complicated. Okay, so now we're looking at line 18 to line number 20. So in these two lines, we're discussing something called tadlis. Now, what is tadlis? We have a hadith, we have a chain here, it's an actual chain. We have Abu Awana, he narrates from A'mash. Okay? And A'mash said, he said, An Ibrahim at-Taymi. Yes? And An means from. Or Ibrahim at-Taymi said. That Yazid ibn Sharik said, that Abu Dhar said, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said. Now if we analyze this chain, we look, well, A'mash, he was born in 61 Hijri. And he passed away in 148. And Ibrahim at-Taymi, he passed away in 92. So when Ibrahim at-Taymi passed away, how old was A'mash? Roughly 31. Yes, roughly 31. So is it possible that A'mash heard from Ibrahim at-Taymi? Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. I mean, if he started learning hadith from the age of about 20, even 15, by the time he had like 15 years to hear this. So obviously Abu Awana will probably, so Abu Awana, he asked A'mash, radiyallahu rahimahullah, did you hear from, so A'mash never said, I heard Ibrahim at-Taymi. He said it's narrated from. I heard from Ibrahim at-Taymi. Yes? That doesn't mean I heard him. So Abu Awana asked A'mash, did you hear from Ibrahim at-Taymi? He said, no, I heard it from Hakim ibn Jubayr. So this hadith, if you just look at dates, without going into depth, you look at this hadith simply, this chain, this sanad, and you look at the dates, what would you think? What would you come to the conclusion? What conclusion could you come to? Is it muttasil or ghair muttasil? It's muttasil because they met each other. But he never said, I heard from him. And when you went to more detail and he asked, he said no. So now, A'mash didn't hear this hadith from Ibrahim at-Taymi. He heard it from Hakim ibn Jubayr. This is called tadlis. Now tadlis, it kind of means to confuse, to mislead, to deceive. So it's a name, it's like taghrib. It's called tadlis, which means deception or to deceive something. It's not always done for deception. It's like, for example, like it may be that there are many reasons to do tadlis. Some of them are bad, some of them are deception. Like, let's say, for example, not in this hadith, but let's say, for example, in the hadith, Hakim ibn Jubayr, or that the person, his teacher is like not that reliable or not that well known. He doesn't quote him. And that's a bad thing. And there's other reasons, we do that in the bigger books. So when a person, he narrates from somebody above his teacher. So A'mash, yes, you either met him or could have met him. But you didn't hear this hadith from him. So if you narrate a hadith, somebody narrates a hadith from someone who he met or could have met, but he never heard the hadith from him. But he narrates in such a way that it gives a possibility of hearing. That's called what? Tadlis. So A'mash did not hear this hadith from Ibrahim at-Taymi. But he could have met Ibrahim at-Taymi. I don't know if he met Ibrahim at-Taymi or not, but he could have met him. And he narrated the hadith in such a way it gives the impression that he may have heard it from him. So now we will say this hadith is called a tadlis. This sanad is this tadlis in this sanad. This is mudallas, the maf'ul of tadlis. Do you understand? Are you following? Ahmad, Ibrahim, everybody else online, you guys following? Yes? So if a person narrates a hadith in such a way that without saying I heard, he just said from or Fulan said, he narrates a hadith of someone who he met or could have met, but he didn't actually hear the hadith from that person. That's called what? What's that called? That action is called tadlis, and that hadith is called what? Mudallas. What's the hadith called? Mudallas. Understood online? Yes? Everybody understand? Any questions regarding this? Yes. Is like, for example, an easy example. Let's say I say a story to my grandfather. Yes? So I met my grandfather, but I didn't hear the story of my grandfather. Then I say my grandfather said. Now, did I say my grandfather? I heard my grandfather saying. I never said he said. I heard him. I said he said. Now, did I hear this from him? No, I didn't hear from him. What's this? What kind of narration is this? Mudallas narration. Now, I may do because I'm not really, I don't need to mention, oh, I heard my father say my grandfather said. Do you understand? Because it's like maybe not important, or maybe I don't want to mention my father. I want to make it seem as if one less chain in my narration. Do you understand? So when you have something like this kind of narration, what happens? This is called tadlis. Online, you understood? Yes, yeah. Good. Okay. Now another form. So remember, tadlis is to do what? Tadlis is to mislead, to confuse somebody, to mislead somebody regarding the sanad, regarding the chain. So one way is like doing this. One way is narrating from somebody above you, who you have met but not heard the hadith from. Another way of doing tadlis is you just quote his name in a way where people don't know his name. So for example, somebody's name is this Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon said something. So it's like, okay, this person said something. Yes? Do you know this person? But if you say Tommy Robinson, do you know Tommy Robinson? Yeah, Tommy Robinson. So he's a right-wing anti-Islam. So that's his real name. But he uses this name. So if you quote this name, nobody already knows that original name. So if you quote your sheikh or your teacher in such a way that he's not known by that name, you try to conceal him in it. We don't want people to know that, oh, he's a weak teacher, he's not strong, or he's whatever. So you kind of misleading people, aren't you? So that's called what? Or maybe you thought his famous name, you know him by this name, but everybody doesn't know by that name. You get what I'm trying to say? Like, say for example, like he may be known by a well-known name, one well-known name, and to you, that name is you know him by another name. That's also possible. Okay? Do you understand? So if you quote a sheikh or a teacher by a not common name, whether intentionally or whether mistakenly, that's also called tadlis. Do you understand? Yes? So we have the next point, number 18. So the first part was to do the previous lesson. This part has to do with what now here? So وَالْمُعْضَلُ السَّاقِطْ مِنْهُ اثْنَانِ, as the previous lesson. That a mu'dal is that from which two people are missing. وَمَا أَتَى مُدَلَّسًا نَوْعًا. وَمَا أَتَى مُدَلَّسًا نَوْعًا. What comes as mudallas? What comes with tadlis is how many types? Two types. Type one is what? You narrate from somebody above your teacher and you miss out your teacher. And type two is what? What do? You mention your teacher by a name not known. Al-awwalu al-isqatu li-shaykhi wa-an. Al-isqatu li-shaykhi wa-an yanqula amman fawqahu bi-an wa-an. The first is removing or dropping the shaykh. Is what? Dropping or removing the shaykh. Yes? You don't mention his name. You remove him. Yes? And yanqula, and he narrates from somebody above him. Meaning the grand teacher, the teacher's teacher. But you don't say haddathani, he narrated to me, I heard him. What do you say? And from him, or that he said. So you know, if you said I heard him, it's a lie, isn't it? And forever people will call you the lie in hadith, so you never accepted. But you just use a word that may mean I heard from him or an. So when you have this kind of structure, so the first type of tadlis is you drop the shaykh and you narrate from somebody above him without explicitly saying I heard. But you say what? An. It is narrated from him, or an, that he said. وَثَانِي لَا يُسْكِتُهُ. The second type is you don't drop him, you mention him. لَكِنْ يَصِفْ أَوْصَافَهُ. However, he narrates him, he describes him. He describes him بما لا ينعرف به. بما به لا ينعرف. In Arafah, what's Arafah يعرف mean? To recognize. And in Arafah, to be recognized, to become recognized. But he describes him or names him. Same thing here. You say names him. names him with such a name. Awsaf is the name, better here, the name. He names him by such a name, or he calls him by such a name by which he's not recognized. Yes? Everyone following me? Yeah, so let's go again. So, وَمَا أَتَى مُدَلَّسًا نَوْعًا. What comes as tadlis is two types. الأول الإسقاط للشيخ وأن ينقل أمن فوقه بأن وأن. So you drop the first one, you drop the shaykh, and you narrate from somebody above him with the word an or an. You don't say I heard or he told me, because that's a lie. But you just kind of miss out the person and you give the impression. And there can be many reasons. We do that in the higher books. And the second type of tadlis mentioned here is you don't drop him, you mention him. لكن يصف أوصاف ما لا به لا ينعرف. You mention him with such names by which he is not known, he's not recognized. Does it make sense? You following me? Okay. So let's recap again now. Yes? Okay. So what's a hadith? Hadith is what? A hadith is made up of a matan and a sanad. So anything attributed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with a sanad and a matan, that's called a hadith. Okay? Then according to Sihha, we have three types of hadith. What are they? Sahih, Hasan, Da'if. What are the conditions of a sahih, hadith to be sahih? There are 5 conditions. What are the 5 conditions? The entire chain, each rawi must have heard from the one above him, muttasil. Then each individual rawi must have 2 qualities. What 2 qualities? Must have adl, credibility, and dhab, which is memory, preservation. And 2 things it must not have is what? Illa and shudud. When does the hadith become hasan? When the rawi dhab is not grade A, it's not high level dhab, it's khafif dhab. His preservation is slightly questionable or slightly few mistakes here and there. And da'if is when it's a lower level dhab, it's even lower than the top 2, or the son is not muttasil, or there's a shuduz, or there's an illa. Okay? Then, بَاعْتِبَارِ مَنْ أُضِيفَ إِلَيْهِ. The hadith according to who's been attributed to, it can be what? Marfu' is what? When you go to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Mansoob and majroor. No? That's mutashabihat in nahwa. Marfu', and we have mawqoof. What's a mawqoof? What's a mawqoof? When it starts up the sahabi. It's sahabi saying sahabi's action. And in maqtu', when it stops at the tabi'i. Okay? And what's a musnad? When the hadith is muttasil, there's no breakage in the chain, and it's also a hadith marfu', the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his statement. The sifa of the riwayah, when you narrate in a particular way, or each person narrates in the same way, what's that called? Musalsal. If the hadith is narrated in multiple ways, if the weakest, the smallest number at any point is one narrator, what do you call that? The least number of narrators of the hadith at one point is what? Gharib. If the lowest number at any point is 2, you call that Aziz. If the lowest number of narrators at any point is what? 2, you call that what? Aziz. And if the lowest number of narrators at any point is 3, you call that Mashhur. And if it's so many that it's like there's not even need for a chain, you call that what? Mutawatir. So you have Gharib, Aziz, Mashhur, and Mutawatir. The first 3 I mentioned in the book. So again, if there's one narrator, then the number of chains, that one hadith, that one button, that one text, if that is the only one narrator, we call that what? Gharib. And if the other narrators, other chains, you call that what? Aziz. And if it's 3, minimum is 3, you call that what? Mashhur. Then we have sanad is muttasil, or sanad can be non-muttasil. And I said to you before, non-muttasil is called, so inqita means what? 2 things. Opposite of muttasil, and also a specific type of breakage. So you have to keep that in mind, it's used both ways. So what's hadith muttasil? What's hadith muttasil? Where there's no breakage in the chain. What happens? The chain is connected. There's nothing breaking in between. Every narrator hears from the one above him. Opposite of that is what? Ghair muttasil. It's also called munqati, but we're going to leave the name munqati for the particular form of breakage. Okay? Now, what we're going to do now, we're going to say here, there are 2 types of breakage. We can say, First one is saqtun zahir. Saqt means the dropping, isn't it? I'm going to say is zahir. What does zahir mean? It's very clear. Once you know the dates of birth and dates of death, you know straight away it's a breakage or not. What were those? If the ending is missing, the Sahabi is missing, what do you call that? If the Sahabi is missing, you call that hadithun mursal. Yes? Because once you know that you know this person never met the Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So he's a tabi. So straight away you know it's a mursal. He's not mentioned. If you quote the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it's a mursal. He never met the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Yes? So that what we're saying that the munqati then last and the one that we said that it is a missing link, we call it saqt zahir. It's very easy to recognize. Yes? So if the Sahabi is missing, you call that what? Mursal. If at the beginning of the chain, one or more than one is missing, what do you call that? Mu'allaq. If one is missing, or two is missing, or three is missing from the beginning of the chain, or even the entire chain, like Riyadh al-Salihin and Mishkat, it was called Mu'allaq. And if you have two consecutive missing, you call that mu'adhal. And anything that's not mursal, not mu'allaq, or not mu'adhal is called what? Munqati'. And these are, we're going to call this saqt zahir. It's just apparent. You can see that he never met him, so now this is munqati'. And if you've met that person, but you haven't heard the hadith from that person, so it's now what? Is it obvious or is it hidden? Is it a bit hard to detect? So you call that saqtun khafi. This is now what? A subtle dropping, or a subtle missing link. So the link is missing, but you can't tell just by knowing the dates of birth and dates of death. Yes? Like for example, A'mash, he narrated from Ibrahim al-Taymi. But he maybe he met him or he could have met him. So same age, this knowing the dates of birth is not enough. You go subtle into the hadith and say, well, he never narrated from him, he never heard it from him. So that's a saqt that's khafi, it's hidden. Like it's not hidden, but it's a bit more difficult to detect. What's that called? Tadlīs. Okay? Yes, that's called tadlīs. Yes? You understand? You follow? So this is a summary of the hadith that we have covered so far. Any questions from anyone? Okay. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.